At the beginning of the episode, a man narrates the chaos caused by the blackout. He mentions that during those 2 minutes and 17 seconds, diverse things were observed by people. He begins by describing a window washer who was getting ready to start his shift for the day just before the blackout happened. He adds that the window washer had no goals or dreams, and he was nobody of note. He was just telling his companion to fasten his safety belt when the blackout struck. Unfortunately, the blackout occurred before the safety belt was fastened, causing him to plummet off the huge tower. Furthermore, the man states that he had no beliefs prior to the blackout, and his life was saved when his safety gear snagged on the scaffolding. The narrator concludes his speech by mentioning that everyone, big or small, is affected by the blackout. He further states that in order to find the cause of the blackout, one should step back and see the whole thing. As we watch the main characters of the story emerge from the blackout, the narrator is revealed to be the window washer who is explaining the miracle to a large group of audience. In the next scene, as Wedek views the footage of Mark brandishing a pistol in a foreign nation, he confronts Mark for his unethical act. Wedek doesn't waste any time in ordering Mark to see the bureau psychologist at least 3 times each week until she gives him the all-clear to report for duty. Although Mark is not too pleased, he decides to leave after snapping a few pictures of the bulletin board displaying the so far gathered information. In the meanwhile, Simon Campos is helping the FBI identify potential suspects in the kidnapping of Lloyd, which Olivia Benford also reported. On the other hand, Demetri has a new accomplice against his objections, Agent Vogel, who busted Mark and him in Hong Kong. Next, due to the fact that Charlie was in school, Mark continues his research at home. Olivia wants to discuss how Mark saw her hug Lloyd just before he was forcefully kidnapped. Although he is unwilling to speak, Mark does admit that lately he hasn't been the best partner. He doesn't believe their marriage is in peril, so he defies Olivia's suggestion of relocating away to a far place. The following day, Mark goes on a visit to the psychologist as urged to him by Wedek. The initial encounter between Mark and the FBI psychologist did not go well, as he just gives her the well-known explanation that does not account for 2/17 of the time. She believes he has a god complex and that the entire universe is presently focusing on him, and suggests he schedule another appointment. She also gives Mark a medication during this meeting to aid him in remembering his flashback. At first, Mark is hesitant to do it, but later he complies. Meanwhile, Lloyd is captured in a pitch-black cellar where one of his kidnappers offers him a drink and presses him for information. When Lloyd declines to answer, the guy assures him that he will soon learn what hell will be like. Janice Hawk brings Simon to Lloyd's home so that he may use his computer while Vogel sends in the detectives who conducted the earlier search of Lloyd's home. After Simon makes many disparaging remarks, Janice walks to the kitchen to bring him the beer he requested. Unfortunately, she is attacked by 2 guys who are dressed in masks resembling those on Mark's bulletin board. Later, Simon is also captured and he eventually finds himself in Lloyd's basement. Despite the hospital's objections, Olivia monitors Dylan and reassures him that they will uncover whoever abducted his father. Meanwhile, Demetri and Vogel look into the absence of the ambulance that served as a front for the abduction of Lloyd, but fail to relocate it. Vogel makes it clear to Demetri that if he wants to find a way to escape his fate on March 15th, he must best perform his job. Out of nowhere, Demetri tries to shoot Vogel, but Vogel manages to dunk it and capture him instead. To be honest, it was helpful to knock Demetri to the ground when he attempted to shoot Vogel, because during this they discovered dead bodies of EMTs. Together, they inspect the place and discover that the EMTs are poisoned, and also locate a phone in a leather case to conclude that it was a palm pre. On the palm pre, the signal triangulation concept is born. They can now track down the individuals who murdered the EMTs and stole their palm pre if it is still in the ambulance. In her flash forward, Nicole encounters the man who drowned her while she is also at the hospital. She pursues him but is unable to find him. She then tells Olivia and Bryce about her findings, and they advise her to contact the FBI. After Olivia and Bryce leave, a nurse approaches Nicole and tells her about Sanctuary. Sanctuary is actually the organization founded by the window washer, where he advises viewers to put a positive perspective on flash forwards rather than worrying about it. In the following scene, Simon and Lloyd have a conversation during which Lloyd acknowledges that taking the blame for the blackout in public was not one of his better ideas. The unknown man from playing cards with Coyote, who acquired the set of rings that Suspect Zero had on him in Detroit, is one of the countless individuals who wish to murder them. As he gleefully declares his villainous nature, he reveals his name to be Flosso. Flosso flicks ashes from his still smoking cigar into Simon's eye. He insists that Lloyd reveal the number of electron volts produced by the plasma Wakefield experiment he carried out on October 6 at 11 a.m. Flosso repeats the question, but Lloyd refuses to answer. Later, Lloyd and Simon are alone again, and each reveals their flash forwards. Lloyd talks about getting a text message from Simon, but Simon reveals that he saw himself busy killing someone. Simon is confused about why their flash forwards don't sync up, but Lloyd reminds him of Go, who killed himself instead of accidentally killing that woman. Lloyd is able to get a small window open to leave a note for help, but it flies away. Here, it is revealed that they are in some sort of industrial park's basement. On the other hand, Dr. Langer continues to help Mark recall more of his flash forward. He can now remember more, including Red Panda resources and the note for help Lloyd just wrote. Mark is later sitting outside of a bar and calls Aaron for help instead of going in. He tells Aaron about the new things he knew about his flash forward. According to Mark, in his flash forward, Lloyd was attempting to assist him with the investigation and claimed to be close to solving the QED, but he wasn't paying attention because he was speaking with D. Gibbons. He was informed by Lloyd that D. Gibbons is misleading him. The next day, Mark visits Wedek, who cannot reinstate him, but urges him to continue looking into his fresh QT hints. He is cautioned by Wedek to keep the possibility of a second blackout to himself until he has more information. At home, Charlie proposes starting with the corners of the puzzle, much as in a real jigsaw puzzle, while Mark reviews the version of the bulletin board he put together there. Mark tries that strategy and looks into Red Panda Resources, a charitable organization that has been quite active in giving since the blackout by making donations all around the world. Since they undertake philanthropic work in Somalia, Mark views this as a chance to enter Somalia in one of their flights, but gets denied. In a coffee shop, Nicole converses with Timothy, the founder of Sanctuary and Window Washer. Since his flash forward, in which he was in the middle of a rally, he has been preaching about loving others. Nicole queries why the flash forward cannot be some type of wake-up call to the world. Timothy then learns from Nicole about her flash forward that she had passed away after being drowned by an unknown person. She questions how that could possibly be advantageous. After hearing this, Timothy discusses how the sacrifice of Jesus, which the apostles could not comprehend, was justified in light of the greater good. During all this, Bryce is keeping an eye on her. After this, Nicole returns home with Bryce to meet her ill mother. At her home, Bryce contributes to the wall of pennies Nicole's mother is building. Since the wall is a memorial to Nicole, Nicole's mother only wants pennies from 1989, the year Nicole was born. When her mother experiences hallucinations every day, she finds it difficult to comprehend why others complain about their flash forwards. In the next scene, Flosso and his thugs make a second appearance, bringing with them the help note that Lloyd allegedly threw in the air. With a cigar cutter, Flosso amputates Simon's finger to start the wild rumpus. After several beatings, Flosso shows him pictures of Lloyd's family, and Lloyd admits they conducted an experiment that produced over 1 quadrillion volts. Meanwhile, Mark finds a menu on his car, which is the same one where Lloyd wrote, "Help US." He visits the restaurant's new site and discovers where the previous location was. Mark later arrives at the previous location, but fails to go inside. Here, it is revealed that it is the same location Lloyd and Simon are being held captive. After failing, Mark first departs, but is eventually forced to enter the restaurant after remembering his phone conversation with Lloyd in the flash forward. As he breaks into the old location, he engages in a shootout with Flosso's men and eventually kills them. With this, Lloyd is saved by Mark and Simon also manages to escape the building. Flosso appeared to have already left, but he can be seen waiting for Simon in the ambulance. It is then revealed that Simon was ostensibly working with Flosso the entire time. Simon wants to go, but Flosso recognizes him as the man at the Detroit baseball game who was awake throughout the blackout. Simon is suspect 0. The scene then shifts to the blackout day when Simon receives a call from Flosso after he attended his father's funeral. One of Flosso's drivers transports Simon to Detroit, where a caller who has known him since he was 13 gave him the order to take his seat at the baseball game. As he arrives to watch the game, he finds a ring like the ones Flosso previously acquired, within a container of popcorn. Simon is told to put on the ring so that he won't pass out when the rest of the stadium and the globe do during the blackout. The guy calls him back and instructs him to proceed to the closest tunnel. In the tunnel, he meets Flosso, who asks for the ring back and urges Simon to follow him. Back to the present, Simon receives medical treatment from Olivia at the hospital before being turned over to Janice Hawk. In order to persuade one or both of them to explain what happened, the FBI is already questioning Lloyd, and they want to pit Simon against Lloyd. Both have so far resisted bending. Mark questions Lloyd after getting his job back for saving Simon and Lloyd. Mark's main questions are if a new blackout is imminent, and why Lloyd remained silent before. Unfortunately, Simon escapes by pretending to have an adverse response to the penicillin he was given before. However, the FBI arrests him while he is going back to Toronto to meet his sister. After Simon pleads, Wedek allows him to stay the night if he wears a tracking bracelet. Later, when Simon sees his mother, she takes the responsibility for his sister's escape. Once a month, Simon had been going back to Toronto to assist in finding his sister. With aluminum foil covering the monitoring bracelet, Simon sneaks out the bathroom window. He visits a retired professor, but gets caught again by Janice. The professor affirms that he gave Simon advice on the towers he erected in Somalia, and that everyone's flash forwards could have been triggered by an increase in power. Sadly, the professor doesn't know how to create a system to stop it from happening again. Back at Simon's mother's house, Janice assists Simon's mother in making supper at her home. As Simon receives a visit from Uncle Teddy, Aka, Flosso, they avoid each other during supper, but Simon is showing signs of fraying and is prepared to murder Flosso. The scene then flashes back in time, when Flosso is in the tunnel explaining to Simon what they have just done. Flosso tells Simon that he set up Simon's hunting accident as an alibi for not being the cause of the blackout when he was at his father's funeral. Because of his outstanding abilities in theoretical physics, Simon had been a part of this experiment since he was 13 years old, and his father was slain so that no one would hold him responsible. Simon is instructed to come up with a plot for his bogus flash forward, and the murder of Flosso's thug who killed his father served as that plot. However, Flosso now wants Simon to remain inside and continue sharing details about the experiment. To convince her mother that Annabelle merely went away, Flosso plays a video of her sister reading a false note while holding a pistol to her head on his phone. In addition to killing his former professor, Flosso believes he has Simon under control. But Simon calls him out and brings Flosso to the floor. The episode ends with Simon killing Flosso by cutting off his access to blood by pressing hard on his chest and strangling him. Subscribe and hit that like button to help our channel grow. Turn the notifications on so you won't miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching.